Hey guys, welcome back to Latin 2. I hope the rest of the Catiline reading went well for you. It's a pretty straightforward translation. I mentioned it in like a little note attached to the video, but I was talking about how, um, from my fuzzy memory, my recollection that Cicero still wasn't aware of the full scale of what Catiline was planning. And the reason I was thinking that is because you just kind of are led to wonder why they didn't just arrest Catiline on the spot instead of letting him flee to meet up with his, the army that had been amassed. Uh, but we'll get into that after we go over the translation. There are some reasons that kind of have to do with like the legal approach they were taking. Uh, and that's why they essentially let Catiline get away momentarily. But anyway, we're going to return to this saga of Catiline once again, obviously. All right, so we're going to go through these sentences. There isn't a ton of new grammar here, uh, but there's still a couple things worth talking about. So, Dende cura ad manlium istum amicum malum te diu desideravit. Okay, let's see. We have the first of many versions of this type of verb showing up here in cura. So, since you guys have presumably already done this, which you will have entered before watching this video, I guess I'll move a little faster today. But if you want to go over your translation one more time, you can still, feel free to pause the video to look things over before I move ahead with the translation. So this would just be like run then. Okay, so cura is an imperative. That's what I was talking about. We're going to see a lot of imperatives in these next few sentences. From curo, curara, that e ending should be a giveaway for you that this is a singular imperative, and that is a third conjugation. Deinda is just kind of like then, and then to manlius. That was the I kind of mentioned that this is the name of the general who was supporting Catiline and helping him amass this army that was stationed to the north of Rome. And then we just have in apposition to Manlium, istum amicum malum. So that would just be run then to Manlius, that wicked friend of yours. Just appositional. Those are all accusative objects of ad. Remember, I'm using this kind of dark red to indicate accusative objects. So this is not a direct object, it's just an accusative of motion toward, technically. And then te diu desideravit. That would be, moving ahead, he has long desired you, or desired you for a long time. Du is the long here. It's an adverb, telling us how long this person has desired um, being reunited with Catiline. So te is the accusative, and he's literally addressing Catiline here. Good. I'm gonna keep moving. Incipa nunc para copias et gera bellum in civitatem. So we have a whopping three imperatives. Is that right? That's crazy. Yeah, yeah, we do. In this sentence, and so this will come out to begin now in kippe nunc, prepare. That's from pero parare, first conjugation imperative singular. Prepare the troops, copias, and wage. So gera, that is a third conjugation imperative. So yeah, three imperatives. It's crazy. Wage or carry out war. That's the direct object of the second part. Against the state. So civitatem. Once again, we have an accusative object, and this is the object of in. So remember, when in takes an accusative, it's going to be into or against every once in a while. And so in this case, it's going to be against. And just bring up that picture back again, because this is a pretty good depiction of what we understand this Senate gathering was actually like, where Catiline was actually sitting there just grumbling to himself, probably, while senators reportedly started getting up and moving away from him as Cicero was bringing all of this to light. It's kind of a funny and super awkward thing to picture. Um, yeah, we'll get into it, but I don't think Cicero even knew for sure that Catiline was going to be at this Senate gathering. So, Okay, brevi tempora te omnesque tuos hostes patriae, vincemus et omnes vos poenas grave semper dabitis. This is a really big sentence, but I'll just kind of do this first half first. So all the way to vincemus is our first verb. We'll translate that part first. And there is something kind of interesting about the direct object here. So, like in a short time or in a brief time, brevi tempora is an ablative of time when. And so you could say in a short time or within a short time, either way. We, when camus, so that's that verb, but you have to kind of gloss over the direct objects in terms of how we're approaching this in terms of English word order. But we will conquer, when camus is future tense. Winko winkera, it's third conjugation, so that mus means we will conquer. You, te, that's the initial direct object, we will conquer you. Omnesque tuos, that's and all of yours. And so I when I saw this, I actually went back to the text and I was like, oh, did I leave out? Was it like something like all your friends? But it's just omnes tuos. So we probably want to add an of there. All yours, I guess, is okay. This is kind of an old timey way of speaking where, yeah, you refer to something as just yours and you don't say like your so and so or whatever. So yeah, hopefully that didn't confuse you guys too much, but I could see where that almost sounds clunky or something. So all yours or all of yours, comma, and then we have apposition to that. He's explaining who all of quote unquote yours are, which are hostes patriae, enemies of the fatherland. So hostes is from our recent vocab word hostis, as in hostile, and patriae is genitive. And then the second part of this, et omnes vos poenas grave semper dabitis. Again, there's something kind of interesting going on with the subject of this part, that it reminds me of something that we looked at last week, I believe. And so this would be something like, and all of you will pay grave penalties. So there's two things to take account of. So let me shorten it to just the second half, everything after Winkamos. Um, so once again, sometimes when we have omnis being applied to a noun, it's often all or every. When it is an attributive adjective modifying a noun that's it's right next to, sometimes I think we're just going to want to use of to make it sound like English. So because we can't say like all, I guess we could say all you, all y'all, all yeah. If you said you all, you'd have to bring of into the equation. But this is kind of interesting because dabitus is second person, and so, just like something we saw last week, it's like a second person verb, which we're used to just being a fully dropped subject. But here it is actually spelled out. Vos literally means you all. That is our second person plural personal pronoun, and it's getting modified by omnes. So, I don't think we're super used to seeing like dropped subjects become not dropped and then also get modified by an adjective. So, that's kind of something worth noting. And then this little construction you want to be aware of that comes up from time to time. But if you don't remember it, then you end up with something like you all will give grave penalties or punishments, rather. So just remember when dare gets poinos as its object, it's going to be translated as pay penalties, which is very different than to give punishments. Yeah, so. Oh, and I guess I left out always. Let me add that real quick. Yeah, always is actually kind of strange there. Yeah, I feel like paying penalties isn't like a perpetual thing, but if you say so, Cicero. All right, just looking back at that whole thing, when Camos is future tense once again. Okay, so yeah, that's all for that. And just to review this, I had to kind of brush up on this to get the timeline here. But so this first Catilinarian, because there are more than one, which this is a speech that Cicero gives, uh, and it's delivered the day after assassins had been sent to Cicero's house by Catiline. Cicero had just been tipped off by the wife of one of the conspirators that two assassins were going to show up in the middle of the day to his house, um, And so Cicero had the wherewithal to be able to get a couple of guards to be stationed outside of his home and not let in the assassins. It's just funny to me to think of assassins walking in the front door of someone's house. But I mean, this is Rome we're talking about. Most people would have simply just one janitor, is what they'd call them, eonator, stationed at the door. It literally means doorman. We use that word different nowadays, but that goes back to the word Janus, as in like January, and the god Janus, the god of doors. So, in addition to just having a janitor or janitor, Cicero had some some actual guards, and they didn't let the assassins in, so Cicero survived. Following this day, Cicero started wearing a breastplate on top of his toga, which was a very like clear visual indication of the fact that Cicero thought slash knew himself to be um, endangered. And so he convened the Senate in the temple of Jupiter Stator, which is the temple pictured to the upper left here. And yeah, as far as I know, or we know, he did not expect Catiline to actually show up to this Senate gathering, which is just, I don't know, it's kind of funny to me. And then he starts giving the speech, and senators slowly start getting up and walking away from Catiline. Uh, we also get like somewhat conflicting reports that some senators still didn't totally believe everything Cicero was saying, maybe thinking he was being a little sensationalist. Uh, Remember that Cicero and Catiline had just been rivals competing for the consular election and the consulship, which Cicero did win. That kind of set all of this into motion. So maybe some senators are like, "Oh, he's still mad about this guy who he was competing against in this election." And this also probably has to do with or connects to the fact that Cicero is simply telling him to leave and not fully trying to get people on his side to the point where they can just arrest Catiline on the spot. More incriminating evidence will come later. At this point, Cicero is still kind of operating under just some scant information he received from the wife of a senator. So Catiline does leave this surprise Senate gathering and gets out of Rome to go meet up with this Manlius guy. So Cicero knew exactly what was going on. Maybe they thought at this point that Cicero or Catiline would end up calling it off. Uh, who can really know? But Etruria here, that is the lighter green area of the Italian peninsula. Etruria, as in, this is where the people who we think of as being Etruscan were settled really early in uh, the kind of timeline of when Rome was being set. They were there before Rome was even a thing. But anyway, this is also an area where years earlier, Spartacus's slave rebellion had a couple of showdowns before they were driven down to the southern tip of the peninsula, away from this area. But anyway, this is where Catiline and his men and Manlius were gathering. Uh, so it's still hard to wrap your mind around the fact that at some point Catiline almost had 10,000 uh, supporters rallying around him. But it's like you have to understand the intricate nature of what was going on at Rome at the time. In the 60s, as I'll refer to them, we have a ton of disenfranchised veterans, meaning veterans who had fought in the social wars and various wars and had not been given land that they thought they were owed by Rome. So they were driven from the countryside to basically be poor people living within the city. And Catiline coming around promising all of this debt relief, and specifically reaching out to veterans of Sulla and Sulla's army. If you remember that guy Sulla who did all of those conscriptions, which Catiline actually took part in, we just have thousands of men who are riled up enough and dissatisfied enough to follow Catiline to the point of being part of his army. Um, and yeah, so Catiline not only has his army, but he has plans for mass, uh, what's the word, arson. So he really did have these well thought out plans to burn down big chunks of Rome and to assassinate multiple senators. So soon after this convened meeting, Catiline leaves, and then Cicero intercepts some letters from some of the other senators who were working with Catiline who still had not been brought to light. They were caught in flagrante delicto, which is a legal term meaning that they were caught in uh, uh, flaming offense, as in caught red-handed, basically. And then from here, there's plenty of evidence with which to uh, um, bring these people to justice. But Cicero does this a little too hastily, and he follows through with executing these senators, despite the fact that Julius Caesar apparently argued quite vehemently to uh, follow through with a full trial, which is kind of interesting because there is some evidence that Julius Caesar maybe had very carefully um, conspired with the senators to the point where his name never quite got implicated. But some people pick up on this plot line, including Ben Jonson, who is a contemporary of Shakespeare, who wrote a play about all of this, and he seems to indicate that Julius Caesar, he was kind of tiptoeing around in terms of keeping an eye on the conspirators, but he just never quite got implicated. But he did try to defend them, and yeah, we talked about it before, but this is something that a friend of Julius Caesar will later use to push forth some legislation that will lead to the exile of Cicero. So basically, Cicero's going to get in trouble for being too quick with this execution. And again, that's just another reason why Cicero probably did not arrest Catiline on the spot during this first Catilinarian, or try to have him arrested, because as barbaric as Romans could sometimes be, they still had this judicial process that is similar to modern judicial processes. But anyway, so after news of these senators being executed, apparently Catiline's forces up in Etruria dwindled from 10 to 3,000. So a lot of people heard this and they kind of got a sense of which way the wind was blowing, and they decided to jump ship, basically. And then soon after this guy Quintus Caecilius Metellus Celer, he's from a really famous, well-known Roman family, leads an assault against Catiline's troops, and they are promptly defeated. And that's it's kind of the end of the Catiline saga. But like I said, this will later kind of come back to bite Cicero a little bit. All right, guys, I'll look over your translations to see how you guys did. You're gonna have the quiz on Friday, so just remember, look over Lectiones 2 through 5 from last week. You can even play the video on Monday again if you want to hear about those again. I will pull one of these Catiline sentences as well. That one should honestly probably be one of the easier translations of the set. And then there's going to be one that I write myself, as usual. And the one thing you can really count on me asking about is the cases of like one, maybe two fourth declension nouns, since those are new and they might be a little tricky to identify because they're new. So look over your fourth declension endings again. And then also, I'll be asking about one or two ablatives, and they will likely be ablatives of separation or place from which. And you'll need to be able to distinguish between those two things. So hopefully you have your textbook and you look through that. But if not, you maybe go through some of the videos from the past week or so. And then also on Friday, we will start chapter 21. So as soon as you finish your quiz, you can press play on the video and start taking notes. I suppose you can do that in whichever order you prefer, but I imagine you probably just want to get the test out of the way. And yeah, please don't have materials out when you take that translation quiz. You can review for however long you want or have time to before taking it. All right, guys, good luck with all of that, and I'll see you on Friday.